What does it cost to have brought all these people in, gotten rid of them, and then have to rehire? Is that more expensive? I would assert yes, than just doing it right the first time.
So we had a couple of things that are really cool. I thought we both kind of saw these articles at the same time. I think one of the first one I want to tee you up on is from the Business Insider. It's funny. We get a lot of our content from BI. I think it's a very insightful place to be.
It is, but I also noticed, it is. It's a great thing, and often it's what we're already talking about.
Yeah. So, well, I guess that's a good thing, right?
They unfortunately get more eyes than they unfortunately for us get more eyes and ears than we do because they have a much bigger name. But yeah, these are often the things we talk about that we pick up from them are things that we're already talking about or we've been talking about for you-know, years already.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think
it kind of brings it back into the forefront of our brains.
Right. Well, this one's been in the news, and everybody sort of most people do know what's going on with Meta. And their plans to cut 5% of its workforce, right? Focusing on the lowest performance. They talked about some issues around DEI initiatives and making sure that they focus on merit and going forward and, not warning employees, but giving them a heads up like it's going to be a year where we're going to really get serious about performance management and up our game. We got a lot of things to accomplish. And we want to make sure that we get it right. So I think, this is what the article's about. I want to tee you up because of your experience in performance management and HR, all that, your expertise. I sort of want to find out, first of all, what's your first impressions of this article and this whole stance about performance management and getting rid of it. Yeah.
Well, the first thing I thought of when it said Meta plans to cut 5% of its workforce, focusing on its lowest performance, it got me thinking immediately of the Jack Welch, method of running GE when he was the CEO, which was every year cutting 5% of their workforce. Okay. Every year they just did that standard, the lowest 5%. And, I've always thought about this. Is it the fault? So where does the issue really lie? Does it lie with, we've just hired the wrong people? Does it lie with, we don't know how to recruit? Because the people above those 5% may not be a lot better. Right? At the 6th percentile of the lowest.
Yeah.
Right? Should we be blaming their leadership of these people, that they're not training them properly? And what does it cost to have brought all these people in, gotten rid of them, and then have to rehire?
Yeah.
Is that more expensive? I would assert yes, than just doing it right the first time.
Yeah, right on. But look, I'm just to be provocative here as being a leader for a long time and you can't get it right every time.
Right.
You can't, it's impossible. And, especially let's just say you're a startup company or you're in massive transformation and high growth. You're growing at 200% a year. I've been in companies like that. And you hear the dreaded words, hire at will.
Yes. Right.
That brings in a couple of emotions for me. One is, wow, what a great place to be. The rocket ship, we're heading up and everybody's happy and we're all kind of rowing to the same tune and we're, everything's great and we're hiring and bringing people on. And that's the positive of it. The negative of it is that something like this can happen in every case where you're not going to get it right. I have made bad hires, so many times I can't remember how many. It's just the way it is. That's just human factor. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think this is unusual. It shouldn't be unusual. My opinion is this should be normal. That's just my opinion. Why wouldn't this happen? Because of the speed of business, the speed of how people are brought in and how they're, the new training now, remote workers, hybrid, and oh my God, what a shit show. So, being a shit show, how the hell are you going to hire everybody perfect? So that's my opinion, Carol. I think it comes down to what it comes down to really is, are these employees the bottom 5, or are they ones that are not fully engaged because of something going on in leadership or the company or the mission or the vision?
Right.
I don't know. It's a hard one.
Neither of us knows the answer to this. That's why I'm asking more questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that, you bring up a really good point. Are they really the bottom 5%, or have they just been left to flounder?
Yeah.
Right? Is it because, and our next episode is going to be on how people are detaching from work. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that here.
Don't give it away.
Really, I'm sorry. If you are hiring adults to do a job and you have taken the right amount of time, whatever that is, that's different for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not a one-stop solution for each company, whatever that right amount of time is. Okay. But if you've taken the right amount of time and the thought and the search process and the interviewing and, everything that goes into search, then if that person's really that good and that person ends up in the bottom 5%, we better be asking ourselves why that is.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same thing that we talk about all the time, that, congratulations, CEO, you are not the most important person in the room.
Yeah.
Okay. You work for everybody else. And I think when it comes to this, they're not looking at it this way, Rob.
Yeah.
What could we have done differently?
Interesting point. Yeah.
And I'm not omniscient. If I was, I'd be as rich as Elon, right? But, because I'm not omniscient, I can only speculate based on my over 30 years of experience and seeing pretty much everything there is to see. You better always be looking at yourself saying, okay, what could we have done differently? Now, that isn't to say that in this bottom 5%, there aren't people that do deserve to be turned out. But I always want to see the company asking themselves, what could we have done differently? And I sure as shit hope is not an effective strategy, but I sure hope that they do exit interviews with these people and that these people tell them the truth.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the $1 million answer right there. I mean, do they tell them the truth? Do they tell them what really is going on? And do they tell them and then there's the other side of the coin. Again, I'm going to flip it again. Is like, do they take ownership for the fact that they may not have really performed? How many people stay into a job, for a year and two, they're under the radar and they don't have a purpose. They don't have direction. Right. They're not happy. It affects their mental health. I mean, there's two sides of that story. And I think it's really important that as leaders, we figure that out because, and I would always, those are difficult conversations when I had them and I had to let people go or teams go or had layoffs. It was, how can I help? What can I do to help, have you land on your feet?
Right.
Use my network. I'm there for you. I'm a reference. Maybe they just got to the wrong place. I mean, look, I'm going to be completely vulnerable and tell you that I've had many jobs in my career. After 9 months, I'm like, I don't think this is the place for me. I'm just not getting it. I don't feel it. I'm not attached to it. I'm not passionate about it. It doesn't light me up. So what do? You go look for something else. I left. I didn't stick around for 2 years. I said, look, this is I need a amicable part, and it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's not your fault. Not anybody's fault. It's just it was a wrong fit. And I've got a skill set that I can use somewhere else. I need to leave.
But here's what I want to ask you about that. Is it because you didn't ask the right questions in the interview? They presented things in a different way than it actually was discovered for you? Like, why did that happen?
All the above.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the honest answer. It's all the above. Or I followed somebody, or it was the next shiny object that seemed like, wow, that's going to be it. There's 100 answers to that, Carol.
Yeah, of course.
And that's why I'm clear that I took ownership, right? Just as much as I didn't go in and say, well, you guys showed me a bill of goods, I'm out of here. I said, no, this is not a fit. And, let's be adults about this. And, our paths may cross again. And I hope they do, but this isn't it.
Yeah.
And we move on. So how many people stick around though? And then you get all these issues that we're feeling right today. Everything pops up. From the mental health to the detachment to the not attached to a purpose, not having a vision,
right?
Not feeling wanted, not feeling needed, whatever. It's a human need, right? We all want to be loved, whether we want to say it in business or not. It's love. Mm-hmm. We all want to be loved, and that's what they're talking about here. Do they feel loved, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're detached from a culture, you don't feel love, and everybody needs that. Mm-hmm. And whether it's life or business, so that's what this is all about. And
right.
I think the answer is it. There is no. I mean, it's like there's so many things this could be, right?
That's right. That's right.
But I want to dig in here, Carol. I want to dig into your expertise in performance management. What do you think that role is?
So, well, here's the one thing I noticed when I first read this article. 2 Meta employees told Business Insider that the company kicked off its annual performance review process. You know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I knew you were going to notice that.
Last week, by having employees submit their self-reviews, peer reviews, and manager reviews.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? We have talked about this, at length.
Yeah.
About the problem with annual reviews. And this is a great example of what that is. How the hell does somebody know if 9 months ago they haven't been performing if you're not going to sit down and talk to them?
Right.
Now, why aren't we sitting down and talking to them? Again, there's a multitude of possible answers for that. One, got a shitty manager.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know how to lead.
Right.
Okay. Or train. Two, that manager has too many people reporting to them. Just can't get to everybody. And maybe has so much of their own work to do, they can't do what they need. They can't give what they need to their people. I mean, those would be the most likely scenarios that I would come up with. Or they just don't care, that manager. Well, whatever. Let them sink or swim.
Yeah, I learned this from the best. If you manage your business on a yearly basis, you get to make those changes that will affect your business every year. If you manage your business on a quarterly basis, you get to make those changes that affect your business every quarter. If you manage your business on a weekly basis, you see where I'm going.
Of course.
And that's it, right? I mean, I manage my business on a weekly basis minimum. And I think it's important that that is what's going on here. And that I got that too. That's that first sentence. Mm-hmm. So it goes back to, hey, is that 5% really the lowest? And are there ones that you're missing on the top, the top tiers?
That's right.
Maybe
we're just lucky. For some reason.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Right place, right time. I'd rather be lucky than good anytime. Mm-hmm. But this whole thing about people that are kind of skirting along, floating along. Are they the ones that are connected to the culture? Are they toxic, but they're really good? We've talked about that. Where how many times have we had people on our team that are the top 300%, 200% of the number, 300%, 400% of the number of a year, but no one wants to work for them. It's how many of those that really to affect a culture need to be addressed as well. So how many? I'm just kind of leery about what they're missing, not just doing the bottom five. I completely
listen. You're not going to get an argument out of me for that. Okay. And we've talked about this before, right? I've talked about, what do you do when you've got remote employees? Well, you bring your people together, really at a minimum once a quarter.
Yeah.
Okay. That's in a perfect world. You got to bring them in 4 times a year, every 3 months to get together. Now, when you've got, I'm sure I've mentioned this. In fact, I'm sure I've mentioned this before. In any number of our episodes, where the search firm I worked for early in my career, for the first 9 years of my career, the owners would wait until they had, a notebook size list of complaints about me before they would sit down and talk to me. And I would always say to them, how can you expect me to change anything if you're not going to sit down and talk to me? when it happens.
Right.
Like, what is wrong with you people?
Yeah.
They're terrible leaders. Terrible.
Sad. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
And I'm sure there are leaders like that still all over this country, all over the world, in fact, right?
Sure.
People that just don't, because they haven't been trained how to lead properly.
Right.
And how to train.
Yeah.
And the fact that these are still, day after day, week after week, month after month, the same complaints from people. Hello, what's the definition of insanity?
Yeah. Yeah. So true.
These companies have to start making changes from the inside instead of not being accountable for anything and just dumping people.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, that's my wheelhouse when it comes to what I speak about. I travel all around the world, and one of the things that I really focus on is the art of leadership, not just the science of leadership. I talk about the fact that obviously to get a seat at the table, you have to have expertise and knowledge on operational cadence and excellence. Mm-hmm. Check that box. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be sitting there if you didn't have that. But the art of leadership is where you separate the great from an outstanding. There's always another level. And that's the key, right? And that's what this is all about. And it's all about that because leaders have to focus on the art of leadership. How do they build an engaged culture? How do they build a connected culture? How do they build that for different, to make a career job versus just a job? And that all comes down to it. And that's why, we're faced with what we're faced with today. And that's why I think sometimes we over-rotate. And that's maybe what Meta had done. They over-rotated a little bit. And that's okay. We all do that. I've done that. I did that through the pandemic. I remember I rotated. I rotated with empathy, and I rotated with, we'll let that slip for a little while because we want to make sure they're okay. We didn't do them any favors either, by doing that. Now the pendulum's coming back, and I think I'm hearing this a lot, by the way. This is something I'm hearing almost every day, companies that are bringing me in specifically to get people in the state where they can be accountable and they can lean into their goals and actually, actually work and be connected. They're telling me this. They're telling me that the accountability and the connection is it's a disconnect, and it's really happening. And they're in panic mode, and they're like, what can we do to really get this back on track? We've got to make our numbers. We have shareholder value we have stockholders. We have, they're freaking out, and it all comes down to being engaged as a culture. And that's what it all comes down to for me. And that's what my studies all been about, as for the last over a decade. It's real. It's not woo-woo anymore. I say it all the time. This is a need to have.
You're exactly right. Earlier on, you were talking about, you mentioned in passing, somebody's why. I hate to break the news to you, but Simon Sinek didn't make that up.
No.
Okay. No. In case he's listening or anybody who knows him.
He knows that.
I'd never even heard of him until a couple of years ago. And somebody said, what do you mean you've never heard of him? And I started watching him. This is not new to me. I've been doing this for decades.
Well, there's the why.
But here's the problem. Okay. If I think back to, when I was sitting down getting to know a prospective candidate, right?
Yeah.
And I've said this many times. I remember new clients, I would say to them, well, you're not going to see a candidate for me till I spend about 3 hours with them. And they'd be like, what? I said, yeah, it takes time to get to know someone. You can't just do that in 15 or 20 minutes. But more importantly, in that throughout those, let's call them 3 interviews, right? Or 2.5 or whatever that worked out to be, 3 hours, could be longer. It was all about, yes, of course, I had them ask me questions, but the questions I asked, one of the most important questions I ask is, paint me a picture. If you were to pick up and leave, if you were to pick up and look at any other opportunities, paint me a picture of what that looks like to you. And they start to tell me, well, this is what I want to hear about. And I would ask them, why? Right. I'm listening for what is it that motivates them and what engages them. And this is, I would assert Meta and many other companies, they just don't do any of that because they don't understand how to recruit.
Yeah,
they don't understand how to put together a position description.
Yeah, and that's the basics.
And they're taking the human element out of the workplace.
Yeah.
Very, very concerned by this, by the way.
Well, your points are well taken, and I hope people got something out of this segment. And I will say that this is the beginning of what I believe is the year of accountability. Mm-hmm. I think people are back on the bandwagon of saying, okay, we've got to. It's about merit. It's about accountability, and we have to answer to others. Stockholders or shareholder values is a big thing now. Mm-hmm. So it's okay. This is the year of accountability. So we all have to be in the right state. We have to be in a peak state, and that's what it's all about.
Thanks for listening to Evolving Your Workplace After Hours. I'm your host, Carol Schultz.
And I'm your co-host, Rob Swymer. Don't forget to click follow to hear more. And please leave us an honest review and rating so we can continue to improve and bring you more great stories.
Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.